Hey guys, it's Ariel. We are going to do one more cooking video. This is really easy. This recipe has 3 ingredients if you count water, and I'm going to make mint tea. This little patch, which is hard to see because it's back here in the shade, I know, is my patch of mint. I've got spearmint and peppermint growing in here. I'm just going to snip a bunch of the tops off here. I don't ever go quite to the root because I want it to keep growing back. I've already cut this several times. I always just have to wait a little bit for it to regrow again once I cut it. But I'm cutting entire stalks, trying to be careful as I cut that I go down right to a join kind of like that, so that I've got new little leaves already starting to grow out. That's mostly just so I can harvest it faster. Mint's generally a hardy plant, as you can tell probably if you know that it grows not over the winter, but it doesn't die over the winter, even in the climate where I live. It's a pretty tough plant. If you get it growing anywhere, it can spread a little bit like a weed. So if you don't want it everywhere, I do recommend planting it in some kind of container. This is in my one planter behind the house where it grows in partial shade and seems to be very happy here. It would be fine in full sun as well, but it does okay back here, and so then it's contained and it can't run everywhere. Now I'm going to just try to pick enough mint to make one good batch of mint tea. This stuff I love on hot summer days, even though I know I don't get really hot days compared to a lot of you folks. And it's so refreshing, and though I almost always drink only water, it is really nice to have every now and then a little treat of something else. Again, I apologize for the background noise. If you've been following my videos, you know I've got a neighbor who's doing a fairly major reconstruction project on their home. And yeah, at this point I'm just hoping they'll be done before winter so that it's not still going on next summer. Anyhow, I'm not going to cut nearly my entire patch of mint here. I'm going to, well, that's maybe a third. I don't know how well the cameras can see with the sun and shade back here. But I've got a pretty good basket full here in my little peck basket, and I'm going to go inside and show you what I'm going to do with it. Okay, inside here, before I went out to cut my mint, I turned on this pot of water. It's just full almost to the brim. That's actually probably a little too full for the amount of mint I picked. It's not going to fit in here, so before this gets to a boil, I'm just going to get rid of just a little bit of that. And put that back on here. I'm just going to bring this, oh, got a little floaty. Bring this to a boil, or not quite to a boil even, is fine. As long as it's good and hot, all we want to do is soak the flavor out of the mint leaves. Now another way to do this without using any heat inside, which if you live somewhere really hot might be important in the summer, is to get a big glass jar. I wouldn't do it in plastic, but I suppose you could. A big glass jar, and you just put your cold water in there and your mint leaves and your honey, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and set the whole thing on your porch or somewhere in the direct sun, and the sun will heat the water inside the glass and brew the tea all by itself. Where I grew up, it was often called sun tea or meadow tea, if you did it that way. I'm a little short on big glass jars that are not currently in use. You can probably see behind me I've got quite a few of them, but they are all full of things. So I'm just going to heat the water on the stove. It is a nice warm summer day for here, which means it's not quite 80 outside. And inside, some people ask about how cool my tiny house stays in the summer. I leave the windows open overnight, let the cool air in, close them during the day to keep the cool air in. And I think it's about 68 degrees or so in here right now. So it's pretty comfy. Anyway, so I'm going to let that come up to a simmer, and then I'm going to put all my mint leaves in here. Now I know where this mint came from. You do too, because you just saw me cut it. It's not really dirty. We've had some good rainstorms recently. It wasn't laying in the dirt or anything, but there's always a chance that you've got some little grasshopper or something hopping around in the leaves. So I do usually just kind of collect it all in a bunch and give it a quick rinse off here. Probably wouldn't be absolutely necessary, but And if you're wondering about the noise, if you haven't watched my other videos, I do live all off grid. That's the water pump kicking on to pump the water into my sink. So just rinse off any little things that might be on the outside there. Love these little baskets for going to pick things out of the garden. And I'm going to stuff this whole thing into my tea kettle. It's not just for tea, I use this kettle for everything. Right at the moment it's a tea kettle. Anyway, got to do that a little slow because I still have my water really full. But as soon as those leaves start to get hot, they kind of wilt. And so they will all fit in there in just a minute. Again, I don't really measure. I like to make as much as I can at one time because I love drinking this stuff, which is why my kettle is so full. And I'm just going to put as many leaves about as I can fit in there. Make it nice and strong. So as soon as that gets up to a little simmer, I'm going to turn it off, just let the pot sit, and let it steep for a few hours. And then I'll show you, I'll just grab all the leaves and kind of wring all the last little bits of flavor out of them, and the leaves will go back in the compost. I do like it a little bit sweet. You wouldn't have to sweeten it at all, but I prefer it. I'm going to use this honey. If you get raw honey and you keep it long enough, it will crystallize. You can probably see there's crystals on there, and there's nothing absolutely at all wrong with crystallized honey. It's actually great. You could eat it like candy if you wanted, but it gets that kind of texture. It's not runny, it's crystals. But that will dissolve in hot water, so I'm just going to put a couple spoonfuls of honey into here. Again, I saw somebody, it made me so sad one time, and said, well, I bought lots of honey and then we didn't get used and it crystallized and we had to throw it all away. And I thought, oh, you poor people. I'm so sorry you didn't know there was nothing wrong with it and that being crystallized is just fine. So anyway, this is just because I've had the end of this jar for a little while. And it's just going to all melt into here. If I was going to come up with a rough proportion, or maybe do a half a cup of honey to a full pot of water, and I think this pot is maybe 5 quarts. I'm not sure. Do it to your taste. I'd do as little as possible, because probably none of us need extra sugar in our lives, but I do like a little sweetener. So I've got a few spoonfuls of honey crystals in there. As I said, they will melt, and I'm just going to, as this gets warm, kind of encourage my leaves down into the water there. It's not too hot to touch yet, just getting warm. So I'm going to curl them up and plop the lid on to hold them under there. As soon as I hear little bubbles coming up, I'm going to turn that off and just let it steep for a few hours. I'll check back in when that's done. Okay guys, checking back in on our mint tea. It's been about maybe 4 hours since we put this in here to steep. Gonna pull the lid off. It's still warm but mostly cooled off. If you can see the tea leaves there, they're kind of limp and not fresh and green anymore. It smells amazing in here. The whole house smells like mint, which is beautiful. So I'm gonna try to gather up as much as I can of this. This is partly why I leave it all on the stem. It makes this part a lot easier than if you have a bunch of little leaves. And I want to get as much tea flavor out of this as I possibly can. As much mint flavor, I mean. So I'm going to squeeze everything I can out of this whole clump of leaves. Wring it out like a rag. Not that you would necessarily have to do this, but you do get some more of the strongest mint out doing it that way. So now I've got pretty much all the leaves right here. They're going to go in my compost bucket. Back into the garden eventually. Now I've just got a really beautiful golden colored tea here. Depending on how long my leaves are when I cut the tea, you get more or less little pieces, and they wouldn't hurt you or anything, but if you don't want to look at lots of little floaties in your tea, you can just use a little strainer like this. Actually, I'm going to use a smaller one, get all the little bits, plus it fits in that jar better. And I'm just going to make a mess and bottle this up. That's the problem with having a kettle so full. It's a little bit hard to pour nicely out of. Could probably have started that over the sink and this wouldn't have looked like such a mess on video. But you can see the beautiful, well, I think it's beautiful because I know what it is, tea. If you didn't know what it was, I guess you might think it's a bottle of urine. But anyway, this smells awesome. It's still a little warm. I like it cold for it to be most refreshing, but perfect. Good strong mint flavor. Just the tiniest hint of sweetness. And so I'm just going to do the rest of this. Once I've got it all in jars, I'll put it in the fridge. Not sure exactly how long it would last in the fridge. I never have it sit there very long because I love it so much, so it all gets drank up in a hurry. Anyway, that's a real easy way to make a nice refreshing summer drink. Only really has 2 ingredients, some honey and tea, and then, or honey and mint leaves, and then the water. Hope you guys are enjoying your summers and staying hydrated and cool wherever you are. Thanks for watching, folks. If you're interested in more info on my off-grid tiny house life, check out some of my other videos here. And if you like what you're seeing, click the little picture of my house to subscribe and then hit the little bell so YouTube actually notifies you every time there's a new video available. See y'all next time.